my job title is quite an odd one. That's what being human is all about, and I think we can lose that very easily now.
Did you feel a sense of discrimination with it being a fairly male-dominated space? Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the Peak Pursuits podcast. In this episode, I talk with Lucy Shepherd, who has been to parts of the world that are completely untouched by most of civilization, such as Kanuku in the Amazon jungle. With that said, as most people are aware, there is a prominent issue of deforestation in the Amazon. So Lucy and I not only talk about her experiences on expeditions, but also what the young generation can do to help steer deforestation and climate change in the right direction. At the beginning of the podcast, I talked to Lucy about what her job involves, how she got into exploring, and who she looked up to. We discussed the difficulties of documenting her expeditions and telling a story to the audience, whilst always having to be aware of what's going on around you in the wild. We delve into some of the intricacies of surviving and trekking across the jungle for 50 days as a team of 5, and Lucy tells stories of some of the close calls they had. I hope you find this episode interesting and inspiring. Enjoy. Lucy Shepherd, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for taking the time to come on.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
How would you explain your job to someone that doesn't know you?
Yeah, my job title is quite an odd one, and sometimes even in the sort of social scenarios where you've got to like do small talk, it's quite an odd thing to say. Because I keep it simple. My job title is explorer, and a lot of people think, that sounds quite far-fetched. How can you be an explorer in the modern times? It sounds a bit like it deserves to be in the history books. And I sort of think, yes, it has sort of quite a sometimes a negative view of it. Sometimes people think you can't be an explorer because the whole world's been explored already, and I think it's completely about a perspective change and a mindset, because the world hasn't been explored completely. There's still lots and lots of things to explore and things we don't know, and I think that's really important to understand. And but also there is still, there's space. Sorry, my dog just came in and was causing distraction. She, you can be an explorer also with your own mind. You can be an explorer in whatever career you do. But my job title is the more traditional sense, where I go to lots of places around the world, often wild and remote wildernesses, from the jungles, the Arctics, and the mountains. And my other background is filmmaking, so that's what I love, and so I'm always with a camera in tow. And I suppose I find that my job is to communicate what I see, share what I see, and hopefully inspire and inform the next generation of young explorers.
When you started out going on expeditions, was it something that you thought you could build a living off of?
No, I mean, I didn't. I was quite new to the word expedition, or I hadn't really grown up knowing it. And again, it sounds like something that you hear Shackleton and Scott, these people who went to the end, so to speak, all these years ago. They were the only ones that could do expeditions. But I got lucky. I was around 15, 16 when I saw an advert in the paper asking for 18 to 25-year-olds to take part in a scientific Arctic expedition. And I thought that would just be an incredible, it's a one-off life experience to do an expedition. And
at the young age of 18, yeah.
At 18, was my first expedition, and that was sort of opened my eyes that it was possible, but I didn't realize that it wasn't like obvious that you could make a living out of it, especially the fact that, I didn't really want to decide that the military wasn't for me. I knew that military people go on a lot of expeditions and they tend to be able to then fall into it afterwards as well, but I couldn't see that clear path for me. So I had to, and I also did, I didn't really particularly want to do permanent outdoor guiding and do expeditions in that sense all the time, so to figure out my own way of doing it. But it kind of shows that you can got an idea. There's always a way. There's always a way to make a living out of anything if you're passionate and you've got to enjoy the process of making it as well as just the destination.
What was it about the trip to Svalbard that you enjoyed at the age of 18?
Oh, it was, so this trip to Svalbard, a long time. That gives you the opportunity to, once you're there, you're really, I think it's a real good thing to realize that there's no way out. You can't, it's not like it's a weekend and you're already looking forward to your hot bath or whatever. You're dropped off and you're on your own with your small team for 10 weeks. And I think that sort of complete cut off of civilization and working in a small, I think we were a group of 10, doing that together and finding people who were also like-minded a little bit. We were enjoying each other's company, but also working as a team. And when you're at school and you have to do these team building exercises, and then they're trying to, teachers are telling you to be a leader of stuff, and you're like, in your head, there's a
each trying to work out your own role within the group, right?
Yeah, and someone's assigned a leader or something like that, and in your head, a leader is like this bossy person with the loud voice. They'll know what to do, which is completely wrong. Like everyone can be a leader, and there's lots of different ways to lead. And I think Svalbard gave me that eye-opening to be like, oh, I can be a leader if I want, because there are other ways to communicate your vision and the path of whatever task you're trying to complete, for example. And I also think just when you're out in the wild, because I love going with people, I love being in a team, but you become the version of yourself that's like the truest and the rawest version. There's no hiding in these places, and that's the same with all of your team. And so it's a very quick way of getting to know people. And you see the best of them, you see the worst of them, and it's a real, I think, no distractions, no internet, your proper heartfelt conversations very, very quickly. And that's what being a human is all about. And I think we can lose that very easily now. And so I'm almost addicted to that. So, I love being in the wild for pushing yourself, being in the environment, but also the team that you're with. You have these just the most bigger human connections with people very, very quickly. The wild acts as a catalyst for it. And I think I really love that aspect of it as well as all the physical side and the learning about the environment.
What tasks was it that you had to complete whilst you're in Svalbard? Was it research based?
Yeah, it was a mixture. Thinking back, it was measuring something called slush flow, which is how fast the ice is melting. And then there's a certain point of the year where the ice melts suddenly very quickly from the glaciers, and there's almost like a river suddenly starts flowing through from all the ice melt. Measuring that, counting birds and things like that, I think you do. But it's been interesting because that was 2011. I was 18 then, so I'm 31 now. And I've been going back to the Arctic, whether it be Svalbard or Northern Norway, pretty much every year or multiple times a year since then. And it's crazy because I can really see the difference in the shift in the climate change, warmer temperatures, and it's definitely happening. When I was out there at 18, it was very much just the Arctic and just the North, North Pole, South Pole that were really feeling the effects of climate change. And now, as we know, like in the last few years, like we are at home as well.
Yes,
absolutely. It's a rapid change.
Yeah, I want to get on to the climate change side of things a bit later on. When you first got into the expedition world, did you feel a sense of discrimination with it being a fairly male dominated?
Yeah, I think I don't know if discriminate. I guess discrimination is the right word. I think I felt very much like I had more to prove, and people would judge you and think maybe not believe that it was all because there must be another reason that you've managed to do that, or you must have had a man behind you doing that, or you must have come from wealthy parents, or all this sort of thing must have put you in that scenario, rather than just taking it of what it is, face value kind of thing. So I very much felt, and I've had the little comments that you hear, whether it's after a talk when I was sort of younger, she did that, like, whoa, I don't believe that, all this sort of thing. And then it's even been, I think you had on your podcast, Neil Lawton.
Yes, yeah.
Who, I met him when I was 18 or 19, and I sort of heard about him, and I went up to him and introduced myself. got him to agree when I was about 19 to have tea with me at the Royal Geographical Society. Because he was doing something like, oh, yeah, how could I do a little bit of what he was doing in the future? And sort of showed how keen and hungry I was for it. And I must have made an impression because a few months later, I get an email from him. He says, look, I'm going to the Hardangervidda up in Norway on a little expedition, recreating a famous military operation. And I'm going with my ex special forces mates and things like this. Would you like to come? And without hesitation, I'm like, absolutely, I want to come. And he believed in me, which was incredible. I remember at the training weekend that we had in Scotland. Yeah, I'm this young girl with all these sort of older special forces guys.
I've seen the photo of you. You're lying down and they're carrying you, and you're in all the white SAS gear. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And never did I think that I wasn't going to do it. Like, it was weird. Even now, oh yeah, definitely going to do that. But I overheard some of the guys saying, Neil, what are you doing? What are you doing bringing her here? She's not going to make it. And I think I even heard him say, she's going to be fine. And sure enough,
Did that build more fire up within you to prove them wrong?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it can work either way, because sometimes it will like put you down. Often for me, if it does put me down, it only puts me down for like the rest of the evening, and I'll wake up and I'll be like, right, no, because I love what I do so much. I'm never going to stop, no matter what anyone says. It might like knock your confidence, and it feels a bit like you've been. I always think it feels like any rejection or any nasty comment. It feels like you've been punched in the stomach for a little bit, and then you use it, and that punch becomes, like you say, fire in your belly instead. And it definitely did that, and it was great because it was a good feeling, because actually I turned out to be ahead of them all on the expedition, and that gave me that springboard and confidence I think I needed to. Then I knew it wasn't going to be I knew it wasn't going to be a short road, which it definitely hasn't been, but it was like, right, I'm going to make this a career, one way or the other. And now Neil remains a very, very good friend and close friend and mentor.
Who are your heroes at that early stage? Would you say Neil Lawton was one of those?
Yeah, definitely at that early stage. And I will say this. I grew up. I grew up watching Bear Grylls at like 14.
Yeah.
And it was never necessary. I mean, I don't want to. Maybe it was. I was watching it for him, but I was also watching it for the places he was going.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I wanted to be him. Like, he's good. Like, wow, he's opening my eyes to all this variety that the world has to offer, and all these wild places. And I was like, it was just inspiring to see that. And obviously Neil and Bear go way back as well. One of the reasons why I went and introduced myself so quickly. But I think Bear showed that there was this whole new type of adventure as well, and it could be quite cool too. And that you could make entertainment of it and inspire people to get inside. Yeah. And that's what it is. And I know over the years he's been criticised for whatever, but he's a very successful man, and he's made a very successful brand and TV shows. And for me, they inspired me. And then they continue to inspire 4-year-olds. So he's doing a lot of things right, and he's getting people to love adventure. So
have you had a chance to meet him?
Not be a bad thing. I have, yes. I met him recently a couple of times, which was cool.
You had a chance to go on an expedition with him yet?
Not yet. I need to pull myself together, because I've met a lot of people in my time, and I never got starstruck. And I have to admit, I got a little bit starstruck. I became a bit of a giddy 14-year-old again.
Yeah.
So I need to make myself more serious for us to go on the expedition together. But it might happen. We'll see.
Yeah. Do you have a message that you want to pass on to those that follow you and look up to you? I mean, Bear and Neil Lawton, they all have these mottos that they go by, that people look up to them for. Do you have one that you go by?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I think my main one is probably adventure is a mindset, not a moment. So it's very much, it's a bit like saying, I think we can all be an explorer in our own lives as well, that sort of thing. I think we should all look for adventures, and it is just a way of thinking, just as being an explorer, way of thinking, being asking questions and being excited and curious by the world, never sort of taking, if you don't like something, change it. And I keep hearing this phrase, but maybe it's just doing the rounds. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So I think having that adventurous and explorer mindset means that, okay, if you don't like that, it's no one else's fault. Can you do something to change it? Or being fascinated by the world, because I really think that we live on such a beautiful planet, and I think we shouldn't forget that. And yes, there's lots of horrors that goes on and things like that, but we can't lose hope, because that breeds apathy and feel that feeling of uselessness. So we have to think of, I was recently back in the jungle just for something, and every time I go to the jungle, it brings back this childlike feeling of just awe, because there's so much we don't know there. There's so much to learn. Everything is just fascinating. It's so exciting to learn, and it makes you just think the world is so amazing. And I think we can very easily get very lost in our own little bubble, and very stuck in concentrating on our little problem, which is a very small problem in the grand scheme of things. And it's really, really good to just come out of that and just get at the bigger picture side. And it makes everything else of what you're dealing with much easier. So I tangent there, but we live on a beautiful world.
I think a lot of people live their lives now through others, especially through social media. And so it's important that you do take yourself away from that and create your own life.
You're so right. We shouldn't be sat looking at how good other people's lives are. Go and live it yourself. It's you're only seeing such a small bit. When you get the screen time thing, how long you spend all week or every day. It's like, wow, put that down. go and do the stuff that excites you. And I think some people, a tricky bit is sometimes finding that. And that's why if you step out of what your regular routine and ask questions and get clarity in your life, whether that be having a little adventure, getting outside your comfort zone a little bit each day, or in a big way by signing up to something, then that helps us to sort of decide what we want to do. Because once you have a decision and a purpose of the way you're going, everything is much easier to get up in the morning.
Yeah. How do you find a balance between work and life when what you enjoy is also what you do for a job?
I mean, I feel very, very lucky, because there are no lines. It's everything is work and everything is life. So literally everything I do, from this pretty much all social side is work. Yeah, that sounds written, but it's people who are passionate about things, and fun. Going to train and work on new ideas or things like that, planning for expeditions. I love all that stuff. So I'm the worst if I'm not busy. So I need to. I like to have things in the pipeline, and you always have to have lots of plates spinning, because one plate will always inevitably go. So you need to be ready for the others. And it's good.
Yeah. What did your parents think of the early life experiences of going on expeditions?
Yeah, my parents at the start, it was all, I think a lot of people. How old are you? Are you about
20.
18 or
20?
20?
Yeah.
You're exactly the age where people are like, you'll go have an adventure, and your mum and dad, it's often your loved ones, they'll say, what an amazing once in a lifetime experience. And it's like, that's what they started to say. And then they thought, oh, well, she's still doing it a little bit more. She's 21, 22. And it's like, okay. And I remember my dad saying, they're very, very supportive. But I remember I'd just come back from a mountaineering expedition. And I was showing him some, I think, GoPro footage. And it was through sort of dangerous ridges that we're climbing. And I think he made a comment, oh, you can't do this forever. And that stung. I was like, oh, yes, I can. And it was until I had actually had the confidence to say out loud, which took a few years of doing it, to say I want to be an explorer, like as a job, thinking they were going to laugh. But they just said, okay, and how are you going to do it? Sort of thing. And I think they struggle sometimes with the dangerous side of it. My mum's got better at sort of burying her head in the sand and stories after rather than the dangers before. But I think they realised that it wasn't going away. One, when I said that, but also because I film everything and I like sharing. It's like an easy way to communicate what you've been through. People never do it, and they'll see this sort of smile on my face on this, when I'm out there. And like I said, when you're out with your teammates and there's no hiding, and you're the version of yourself that's like the truest. They'll sort of see the smile and like that is your sort of 8-year-old smile that you only seem to do now on
True, you.
predictions.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think I always feel it. So, I feel like I'm a good version of myself when I'm not on expedition, but as soon as I'm out there, it's like a little time warp. I'm back sort of being it makes time stick still because I don't need to be anyone except that version. And I think we're all like that. And it's I'm sort of addicted to that feeling of just being like, oh yeah, this was who I am. And they sort of saw that, and as soon as I started to make it a job and doing well in that respect, that it was a much easier sell for them. So now they're proud, but it took a little while of convincing. But they've always been supportive in that. We've been lucky to come from a loving family who trusted my odd job choices.
You mentioned that you enjoy taking a camera with you on these expeditions and adventures. Some people are of the view that you shouldn't film everything that you do. You should be in the moment. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, definitely. And but for some reason, for me, and I'm like that when I'm not on an expedition, I feel like that. But for some reason, when I'm out on an expedition, it's become that is my true version because it's always been that way. So, and I love just capturing that memory, and also bringing it back to share. Because what I'm doing, I'm in a lucky situation to have been able to get the skills to be there, and I want to sort of share that. And I also use it as a tool so if I'm on my own or with a very small team that I'm leading, who maybe there's a language barrier or something, I'll use the camera as a bit of a friend and a bit of a way of processing my thoughts. So I'll do video diaries and things like that. And it's actually become quite helpful in that respect as well.
Do you post those video diaries for other people to watch, or is that for you to reflect back on?
Yeah, so I'm thrilled to announce that I have a series coming out in September on I don't know if I'm allowed to say which broadcaster yet, but it's one of the main UK broadcasters. And so it's kind of been what I've been gearing towards for all these years. But those video diaries form a big insight into what goes on. So yeah, they will be shown with the tears, snot, and all.
On your website, you have a section labeled as World of Contrasts, where you comment on the difficulties of each biome, the desert, the jungle, etc. But what are some of the universal difficulties that you'll come across regardless of the biome which you're adventuring in?
Yeah, I think there's always difficulties in just managing yourself. If this like managing yourself, it sounds really small, but like personal admin and things like that. So wherever you are, you have to be on top of. You have to be very mindful of what you're doing and your body, but you also have to be very organized wherever you are. So my skills that set me up that in the Arctic, it's all about being very organized and knowing where everything is. It sounds such a small thing to know where your big mittens are, because and your goggles, because if you pack them in the wrong place on one day and the storm comes in, you suddenly can't see, and then you suddenly can't use your hands because you've got a frostbite, and then you've got a very serious, it's all escalates. So it's very, very small things lead to very big consequences. And that sort of set me up well for jungle stuff. Yes, there isn't as much kit, but you have to be really good with your fire skills and your personal hygiene. For example, if you don't wash properly once in the jungle, that one tick bite could infect and ruin your whole expedition and possibly lead to catastrophic. So it's all about dealing. I think all of those environments, it's about looking at the small stuff to prevent the big stuff.
Do you find it difficult to relax, and you always having to be switched on, thinking about what can I do next to prepare me for the next thing that could happen?
I think when you're new to expeditions, that's very much the feeling. So once or twice a year, I guide expeditions up in the Arctic, and you can see people there's so much to remember and there's so much to learn, and it's all like at the top of their brain, and they're all sort of bit sort of haven't relaxed into it, or hasn't become normal and a habit. But then you can relax, I think, in the Arctic. In the jungle, in the jungle you never can relax, because there's just so, as you can guess, there's things to watch out for, from all the insects, the sense of what you're touching. There is really like everything in the jungle has a defense mechanism of some sort that probably is going to hurt. So in the jungle you can't relax really, even when you're by a sort of idyllic water source. So don't get too close, because XYZ might come out of it. It's not so, and it's more bad because where the places I'm going to are so remote that rescue is unlikely. So that's why it's such a big deal of not relaxing. But in the Arctic, I would say, you've got, if it's a nice bluebird sunny day, you know where you're going. You can see there aren't any polar bears. You're not on a crevasse field or whatever it is. There's no better feeling than skiing with a sled with all your stuff behind you, and just like that idyllic feeling with your team, all in a single file or chatting 2 by 2 next to each other. That's a beautiful feeling. And then again, mountains is a bit of a mixture of both, because you've got the sort of other things to look out for, and
Always very vulnerable. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's just you're dealing in the mountains, big full avalanche or huge drift, whatever it is. So, I would say the most relaxing place is a still bluebird day in the Arctic.
Could you talk a bit about and explain what the 50 days crossing the Kanuki? Is that how you pronounce it?
Kanuku Mountains. Yeah.
Could you talk about that expedition in the Amazon?
Yeah, no, that expedition was so it's a whole area that is pretty much like 90% of that whole crossing on foot was unexplored, and it was it's a very feared area, a lot of it, because by Indians, who are the people who live in that. They don't live in that area. No one lives in the area we're crossing, but live on the sort of outskirts of it. It's had like myths and legends surrounding it for so long, and so no one's wanted to go in. And those myths and legends are from animals behaving oddly, snakes that are everywhere and they hunt you, or two of these sort of mythical creatures that hunt you down and shout or they'll get you. And I'd done a recce expedition the year before on a smaller section of it, crossing it from south to north. And I'd done it with a team of Indians, and sort of, it was, we had some sketchy moments, but it was like, this place is proper wild, so unexplored. And someone who had given me that idea to try that also said, well, why don't you try and cross the whole thing? This whole thing is just a huge area of unexplored. And he sadly passed away just a few months after that. And he was a good friend, and he was at Special Forces who lived out there as well. And I thought, well, I was really going to make it happen now, because he'd sort of given me it's not often such a large unexplored area is, you find out about it and you sort of have the technique and skills already to go and do it. So I managed to get a team together, some of the same Amerindians who had been with me on the previous expedition, some who I'd known for many years before. And so there was 5 of us who started it, and we started completely. It took us 3 days to even get the start point, so even that was like completely remote. And no, we didn't know how long it was going to take, because in the jungle you don't know how thick the canopy is, so you don't know how thick it's going to take. You're there with a machete, so you take machete, you take bow and arrows for hunting for fish and for protection. Then you take a rucksack with as much food as you can carry, but you don't know when food is going to come. And unlike a lot of expeditions that in the jungle that are on kayaks or canoes and things like that, which is very hard in its own right, because of rapids and things like that, and sun and midges and stuff like that. But this was just in the canopy, dark. We were only crossing a river, major rivers, every 3 weeks or so, which meant we were in darkness for sometimes 3 weeks at a time. And we had 2 resupplies, which meant I'd organise someone to come by boat for it took like 3 days to then drop off some barrels with some food and then go.
Sorry, how did you coordinate, if you didn't know how long it was going to take you to get to the next step, how did you coordinate them coming 3 days in advance for when you needed those supplies?
So they would put it as soon as they'd sort of said goodbye to us in the initial one, because it was all food that was like dried noodles and stuff, and it was in a container where it would be stuck. But he would dropped it at a river with the coordinates, and then I was able to get the coordinates through Garmin, GPS thing. But it would be very delayed because the canopy is so thick. Even sending messages like that would take sometimes days. And it was a case of the maps we were using were 50 years old, and they were taken from a pilot who flew over 50 years ago, took some pictures, and drew what he saw. So they were okay when it was the real mountainous stuff, because he was, doing the contours and could see the shadows and things. But in the lower parts, it was just so inaccurate. And so that was just a whole other problem to solve. And it was very much me with a compass being like, in the jungle, you have to, it's very easy. So fun fact, we all have a dominant leg. So everyone thinks they can walk in a straight line, and it's just like, it's very hard to walk in a straight line. And when you're basically in a bush constantly with trees everywhere, your dominant leg, and often it's your right leg that's dominant. So everyone's always slightly wanting to turn left. And that doesn't matter so much for a short distance, but when you're like talking hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, you're always going to be slightly going off the bearing.
Wow.
So I'm constantly there, like with a compass, with my bearing, going left, right, left, right, right. That's how we did the whole expedition. It was ridiculous. And we were crawling through things. Yes, you have a machete to like cut through, but you can't cut through everything. It's not like you're cutting a path. You're cutting big stuff and then you're crawling under it, or small stuff and then you're crawling under the big stuff, and you're climbing up things. And a lot of the time you're not even on ground in the jungle. You're sort of on fallen trees and hoping that what you're standing on isn't gonna break a leg. And this rescue is sometimes weeks and weeks away.
Did you feel responsible for you said there was about a group of 10, isn't it, right? Did you feel a real responsibility
group of 4.
for those? Sorry, group of 4. Did you feel a responsibility for that? For them?
Totally. That really weighed on my shoulders. Because yes, they know what they're doing in the jungle, but they've never been there. We're all being an explorer. And we came so close to having some of the guys either stepping on some deadly snakes, or you're cutting with a machete. That is one of the deadliest things that you're when you're out in the jungle. That's probably going to cause the damage. It's the cut. People are tired. It's slippery. Sometimes you cut the leg, and it would be cut my leg, and you're sort of ready to deal with an artery or something. And luckily, it wasn't that, or it would fling out of their hands by accident, and stuff like that. So because I was the leader of the expedition, I had to constantly just get people to take it one step at a time, because God, it would be horrendous. You can't control where people are stepping, and yeah, it was quite a hard one, and it was, I think, the biggest relief when we got out safely. It was like the most surprise for me to sort of have got that out of that safely, and everyone came out in one piece. But yeah, the biggest relief was like, oh, we did it. We're safe. I don't need to worry about all these men and their families anymore. Like,
Had something have gone wrong, what's the procedure for being? I assume it would be helivac'd out.
yeah, I mean, this unfortunate thing is it's Guyana, which is the Guyana country that's sandwiched between Suriname and Brazil and Venezuela, depending on which part. And it doesn't always have have a helicopter in the country. So there were some weeks where there was never a helicopter, and that helicopter, even if it was called, one, it would take a couple of days for it to even come. Two, it didn't have a winch, which would allow something to come down the tube. And so there was only very, very small occasions that I would be marking on my GPS that had some sort of opening where a helicopter could land. So if something had happened, we would have put the SOS, but that would have taken a long time. So say we were in between two of the major rivers, so right in the remote, because if you're by a river, that's a different story. That could, you could get a boat within 2 days or so. But if you're in the middle of absolutely nowhere, it would either be a stretcher out and hope that it's not a snake bite or a blood, broken leg, bloody wound or something. Or you would try and cut a section, like you would try with all your machete skills, try and cut a section for a helicopter to land. So yeah, it was very much on our own, I think, and we were dealing with these snakes, bushmaster snakes, on a daily basis, really, that were really deadly, and they didn't take a liking to us in one bit. We came too close for comfort on many occasions with them, and if they bite you, it's a deadly one. And one of my team almost got bitten twice, and yeah, I've never seen someone look like they've seen a ghost.
Bush snakes, are they the ones that sometimes just sit on a path for weeks, digesting the food?
Yeah, exactly. And they're so big. They're 12 foot long sometimes, but they're so camouflaged. So camouflaged. And there's lots of myths that lots of people say it's inaccurate, but they're Amerindian myths. But having been with the Amerindians and with these bushmarks, I don't think they're inaccurate. I think they're true. These snakes they whistle. We hear these whistles constantly, and it's like a territorial thing. I think, warning you off and telling other snakes that you're there. But I'm also pretty sure the other thing that the Amerindians said before was that they travel in pairs. So you should always be wary if you see one. And I'm pretty sure that is certain, because we did see that. So yeah, these bushmasters became our constant fear.
So are bushmasters more dangerous than anacondas?
Yeah, definitely. So anacondas aren't deadly venom. Anacondas, there might be a threat if they start to wind on you in the water or something like that, but that's quite unlikely. But if they bite you, it's going to hurt. Of course, they've got big fangs, but you're going to be okay. Especially if you've got a team around you, however, bushmasters, yeah, if they bite you, venom is going to kill you quite quickly, unfortunately.
So when you were setting up camp, how long would you leave before, or how long would you give yourselves before it got dark to set up a base for camping?
That's a good question. So one of the key things that I discovered from doing the recce expedition was that it was vital that by 3 p.m. every day we had to start being like, right, we need to find a camp spot very soon, because at 3 p.m. it's when the bushmasters and the animals start to come out. And it sounds so abstract, but it was totally true. At 3 p.m. the bushmasters start whistling, and you start hearing more peccary and jaguars and things like this. And so at 3 p.m. you start looking for a spot, and I've when I do a little map analysis every night before we're about to start, and I'm sort of trying, because the maps are so inaccurate, but I've sort of started to understand how the pilot who took the pictures and were drawing was working, where the water sources might be. He's drawn, because basically you need to wash every night, like I said, hygiene. sometimes that might involve like the tiniest stream or the tiniest muddy puddle, but as long as you can find something to use your then anti-bac soap on your skin, then you'll be okay. And then I'd put A, B, and C options where depending on how much distance we'd cover. And so we'd look, hopefully be putting up tent by 3:30 p.m. We can get the camp up very quickly. You just clear the ground to make sure you can see snakes and insects and you bullet ants or scorpions. At the hammocks super quick and the tarp. You're already getting a fire going, and my team just insanely quick. And then you're either cooking up for your dried noodles that you collected, or you've got some fish or leftover fish that you've caught on grub. And you basically, because it gets dark so quickly, because as soon as the sun's gone, the shadows of the canopy in the jungle, you really want to be getting your feet above the ground by like 5:36 into a hammock, which sounds so early. But in the jungle, you sleep quite animalistically. You sleep, you're like be asleep for 10 or 11 hours, but you're not really asleep. You're always alert. So your eyes will just wake up immediately with any noise. And sometimes it's like a possum that's fallen from the tree above and fallen to the ground, but it makes an almighty noise, and then you're already like out ready to fight, whatever it might be. And so you sleep like that constantly, and occasionally you get up and have a little chat in the middle of the night, and night feels very long, but it also your body is trying to dry out as well. So I got this tiny cut on my leg that was like the size of like a fingernail cut, but because in the jungle it's so wet and so dirty, it just got infected and it became such a big thing and like such a big wound. And every night, all I was trying to do is like air it, like dry it out, and it would try and heal. And then, of course, as soon as you're going again, your wet clothes on it just opens up. So it was a case of, the body is very resilient. It's quite amazing how resilient our bodies are when you put it through it.
What sort of temperature was it in the jungle?
I mean, when you're not in the shade, but if you're in the rivers, it was probably like 30 degrees, but in the shade, it was probably 25. But then it's just the humidity that's like, almost 100% humidity. As soon as you think, oh, it's not so bad, and then you move a few steps and the sweat or the water in your face like doesn't move, it doesn't leave your face because it can't. So it's just like on you, and your clothes are just, you get very used to being in very wet clothes, and you have a wet and dry routine. So every you carry one set of clothes. You have the clothes that you're wearing, and then you have a dry set of clothes, your nighttime clothes. And then every night you get to the water source or whatever it is, you take off your clothes, you clean them with your special soap, and then they're wet and they won't dry, but they're kind of clean from little pores of bacteria and stuff, and you hang them up. And then you're in your dry clothes, which it gets quite chilly, like especially in the mountains. It's cooler in the jungle, and you're in your dry clothes for that. And then in the morning, of course, you wake up and you have to get out of your dry clothes and into your wet clothes. And it sounds horrible, but you get quite used to it putting on your wet clothes every day. And it's funny. It does, but I always thought it was quite sad because the one thing that we needed to look after the most was our feet. And always in the jungle, it's like that with anywhere. As soon as you think you've got publicity, you sort it immediately before it becomes too big. But in the jungle, your feet can very easily rot and get trench foot. And we all took such good care of our feet. In the morning, you powder them with this antifungal stuff, and then after that, you put on your wet socks, but then you powder that. And then within like 10 seconds of putting after you put your wet boots on, you're like wading through some muddy river. We try, but yeah.
So, when you were setting up the camps, would you each have your own role? So one of you would light the fire, well, one of you would collect the kindling for the fire, one of you would set up the hammocks, etc.
Yeah. We sort of rotated that a lot, and who would do the water, look after the water, and sometimes if we're in a particularly sketchy bit with animals, we'd want the fire going longer. So we'd sort of take it in turns to keep the fire going all night. And yeah, no, it's unlike the Arctic. There's a lot more in the Arctic. There's a lot more to be doing at camp because you're having to get tents up, dig tents in, and you're having to it takes a long time to melt snow and things like that in the Arctic. But at least with jungle, you can get your sort of stuff done quite quickly. And it was no better feeling once you'd taken those wet clothes off and you'd had a wash in quotation marks in sitting in your hammock and eating whatever tiny bit of food that you're eating, but feeling a bit fresher than you did 10 minutes ago. And just being like, oh wow, look at us. And it goes back to that connections with people and the guys, my team, we became such good friends and we became such a family that it was very just nice to spend those evenings together just chatting.
Did you have any arguments or disagreements between you?
There were moments where I had to sort of get a bit firmer as a leader because it's quite an odd scenario really of me coming in and being one, a woman, and two, an outsider, and three, I guess, fairly young. But they would set some of the guys who were younger wanted to, for example, go hunting at night. It's called shining. You take your head torch and you shine for the whatever's out there. And use bow and arrow together, which is fine if you're in a safe place at night because it's so much harder to see what you're standing on and what's out there. You're more likely to, step on something. So the rule that we'd all agreed to was don't go walking at night. Or go straying from the group because you're just putting yourself in the suit and doing. A couple of the guys at one point really wanted to go. And on that scenario, we're like, I know you can do this at home, but we're literally in the middle of nowhere. And it was towards the end of the expedition, so they were sort of we're almost done. We were still just as vulnerable. You have to sort of choose your battles sort of thing. And then there was another situation of ibuprofen going missing as candy. But no, generally it was a really good dynamic that we managed to find. And I had a really close connection with a couple of the guys who were both from the same wavelength. It was good to communicate with everyone.
How did you document the trip?
That was documented all on film, and that's actually what that expedition is. What's going to be coming out as a series in September. So
what were the difficulties of filming that though? Because did you filmed it yourselves, I assume, between the 4 of you?
Yeah, there were loads of difficulties. I mean, you have to take a lot of extra kit because you have to have batteries, and couldn't even solar charge because there was no sun. So we just took a lot of batteries and power packs. And then just looking after the kit. Also, just to make a good show, it's not as easy as just having a camera every now and then. You have to film everything from lots of different angles and lots of different ways. And luckily, my history, I did film and TV as degree, and then I worked in TV for a while, so I kind of had that. But even when you're feeling really rubbish, or when you're trying to balance on things, it's much harder to be filming all the time. So you just have to get that, make that habit. But also, I got very lucky because one of my teammates, Mikey, he showed an interest very early on in the camera, and I was like, right, he wanted to be trained up, and so I thought, well, that's perfect. So the series gets so much better as it goes on because he starts to then take more responsibility, and then we got 2 cameras going, and it just gets much better. And so we had an extra camera person, which was really good. And it becomes an extra job to. I must film that. Oh, we didn't get that, so I need to get this bit, and it's a constant thing. But also when you're suffering on these things, it's really good to have things to do and things to take your mind off it, because as soon as anyone is suffering when I'm guiding people or leading people and I'm seeing people are finding it hard, you have to sort of generally take their mind off it, to give them a job, give them something else to think about. And so for me, it became a way of, being there, getting up in the morning, to looking forward to seeing how this turns out.
Were you always thinking of how the storyline's going to pan out, or were you just filming everything and then in post editing you'll go and create a story from that?
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of thinking, right, this is a good beat to the show. A beat is like a story plot, story moment. This way, and it meant that you could always see the bright side if something bad happened, because we had this really crazy capsize, even just on the way in to being dropped off, and that capsize could have ended the whole expedition, and it was really quite serious. And a lot of the guys were shaken up from it. It was almost like a sign of the devil. It was too serious. But then it was pretty terrifying. But then in a way, it was like, wow, we've got a really good opening to the show, and things like that. So you would kind of be doing that, and then there were other bits that when you go through the footage afterwards, like it's actually a lot of the time the smaller moments that you might have missed at the time that become the essence and the heart of the story. So the little moments with me and the team, and little moments of we had Aaron, who was a good friend from previous expeditions, and Amerindian, and he was really struggling. He was the most scared about going on this expedition because all his village had said, you'll all die if you go there. You can't do this. And so he'd spent the whole time for the first few weeks being quite scared, and we had some capsize and had some other moments that made him scared. And then there was a point where he had to sort of step up and get his confidence going because someone else couldn't do it. And then he sort of just went through this transition that was really great, because he then became, again, his true self, became the bushman he always used to be when he was younger. And he suddenly just started to excel. And then we had this other guy who's the youngest, Mikey, who wanted to learn what Aaron was doing. And then Mikey was teaching Aaron some of the younger stuff, like, working with the GPS and things like this. So it was a really nice crossover of knowledge from everyone. And that became apparent like after we'd sort of were sifting through the footage.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine it must be really difficult to think about filming something when you're in a high stress situation such as that capsize at the beginning of the expedition.
Definitely. Yeah. I guess but I think it goes back to there's that quote, if you're too close to the painting, you can't see the picture. And I guess that's, in a sense, like it's the opposite if you're filming, because you keep having to become the audience and like come outside of it. And it's a really good way of digesting what's just happened, because you're thinking of the bigger picture all the time. And I think also it's helpful as a leader, like even though it was just an extra job to do, which was filming, but it helped me as a leader to sort of analyze what's going on.
That's a really interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't often see, a leader is often just focused on, is never focused on the filmmaker usually. But actually, in a way, in hindsight, it probably actually helped, because I think I heard a quote recently of some special forces guy saying, he, whenever it's got a plan to do or something, he's always getting one of his teammates to look at the map and figure out, because if you're looking down at the map, you're not looking up and out. And the leader has to be looking up and out and looking at the whole thing. Whereas if you're looking down at the pattern, you're not looking at it. Good way.
I think also when people watch documentaries like the one you're going to create, they can sort of get an appreciation for the physical side of what you're doing, but they don't ever realize what it takes to film it. They're two separate things. The difficulty of what you're doing, but also the difficulty of filming it. Are you going to create sort of a back-end story to how you created the film as well as the documentary?
Yeah, I'd like to do that, sort of something online to sort of show the backside of it, because it's like, it was such a big thing. And then even producing it afterwards, I mean, yes, the expedition was hard, but oh my God, like making it, getting it commissioned, and then producing it and like editing it with a small team, like getting it all together. Something else. Yeah, all the skills of leadership out on expedition seem much more straightforward when you're out there dealing with things that are like right in front of you, hazards, rather than compared to when you're out and dealing in the modern world where it's a whole different world.
It must be nice for you though, looking back through the content you've created and sort of living it again without the stress of being there in the moment.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm really proud of it. I really can't wait for people to see it. And we have a great composer, Richard Collins, who did. I don't know if you've seen the film Wildcat that was on Amazon Prime. And I'd heard his music with his friend Patrick, who did that. That same feeling needs to be on this show. And the music is just perfect to it. We've got some brilliant like animation, which is from someone called Barry Thompson, who's out in the States, who did all the Dawn Ball and Meru and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's come together like really nice. I can't wait.
Do you have a rough time of when it will be released, when people will be able to watch it?
Yeah, it's out on the first episode is out on the 16th of September, and then the second is on the 23rd. Yeah, I think I can say. I'm going to say Channel 4 is that one.
I think I've got down here in my notes that it's going to be on Channel 4, so that must be.
Yeah, I think you're allowed. Yeah, it's on Channel 4, so yeah, it's coming out then. So,
fantastic.
So, yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. What was the prep and training? You said you did one shorter expedition in the Amazon with 10 other people, but what was the training like?
The training so I did that smaller expedition, the Recce, just before COVID hit. So I got really lucky because I sandwiched them for two. So COVID hit in March, and I think I came back from that Recce expedition with the Indigenous guys in February. And then as soon as I finished that, I'd realised that I was going to do this big one, which was going to take some time to fundraise, train for anyway, and plan. And so I actually set it at the time that we left that in September, the following year, or that year, I can't remember which one it was. And so I had that goal, and the training was I went back to my parents' house when COVID hit in Suffolk, which is in the countryside, and I was just able to throw it all at that. And so I just did a lot of endurance training, a lot of training without water and food, a lot of uncomfortable stuff with like extra heavy rucksacks and walking when you. It's weird in the jungle. A lot of the uncomfortableness comes from things like skin. So you constantly feel a bit irritated all the time on your rucksack because of various things and bites and insects and red ants or whatever it is that's on you. And so there's this feeling of uncomfortableness constantly, as well as the achiness and the feet and tired and stuff. But you have to I had to really train my mind to be able to switch that off. So you have to switch off the pain and the uncomfortableness. So I was just practicing that a lot. Yeah, things like that.
Putting yourself in uncomfortable positions so that when it comes to the real thing, you're more. Yeah,
and just knowing that you can do it, and a lot of long runs and a lot of that sort of thing, strength training and things, just body prepared. So yeah, I think so much with the mind. If your body's ready and your mind isn't, then you're not going to be able to complete it.
How did you educate yourself on this sort of thing? Was it watching YouTube videos or reading books?
Good question. I think it's just from experience from all the expeditions that have led up to that point. Because I've been doing it at that point for 10 years, and I knew that this was the big one that I really wanted to make, make the stuff. So I just threw everything I'd ever learned from, whether it be Neil or other people who were much better at it than me along the stages, along the years I've been doing it. Just learn everything, take what you think is right from them and their knowledge. Listen to everyone, but not necessarily have to follow everything. You do what works for you. It was just a matter of a lot at the time until you're out in the field, and just being able to take it step by step. And choosing the right team who I had was really vital as well, and making sure we were all on the same page. We all had the same expectations. We all had a plan, and we were all respectful for one another. And, take it as an adventure, which it was, and not sort of just no egos attached to anything. This is a dangerous thing. We have to make the right choice. We shouldn't rush into anything. We've got to be one as we do this, and so we've got to have a constantly open dialogue of communication so that we know what's wrong with everyone all the time, and I do that by leading by example. So, first day, oh, how is everyone's, stomachs? Is everyone going to the loo properly, or all this sort of thing? So everyone's, oh, the walls are taken down very quickly.
Yeah. I think I noticed a comment, it might have been on your website, not to be stereotypical, but generally males are more ego driven. And so in that sort of situation, being the leader, it's maybe best to be a female because you look at the broader picture and you're more concerned with how other people are doing than with the ego of getting through the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely stereotyping male, because there's lots of brilliant men and there are lots of terrible women, and vice versa, or whatever it is, or not terrible, but you know what I mean. It seems to become a pigeonholed, become a male trait, the ego, when maybe necessarily not, but maybe more of a masculine. Maybe that's the way of doing it, and women can be masculine thing. But yeah, there is no room for egos, and I think sometimes having an ego comes from not being as confident in your decisions. So it's like a fallback thing of, well, if I just act like this, when actually if you show vulnerability and put your hands up and say, I don't know everything, I don't actually know what I'm doing, so guys need to have some input here. Like, you choose a team for the reason that the team members should be actually better than you from lots of things, so that you all bring a different thing to the table. So you need to be honest as a leader, and everyone needs to be honest of what they don't know. So an ego is dangerous, because an ego suggests that you saying you have to do something when you might not, and then you might get people to follow you through the fire when you don't know where you're going. So yeah, I think the key is to sort of just put your hands up, and if you don't know something, work with your team and figure it out. And I think by doing so, you'll hopefully build a trust and respect that we can all benefit from, and then you can have the relationship that you want. And remember, you're out there for months at a time. You have to like each other. So you want to get to know each other. You want to like each other as people as well. You don't have to constantly be like, this is a leader and you are the team. Like, it's not like that at all. So you have to be all very equal in the way you're doing stuff. And yeah, that's I think everyone, because some people, I mean, we all do it. Like, I think I sort of noticed some of the young guys having an ego to start with. And actually, it was really interesting, because as soon as they realized it was okay to show a bit of vulnerability and that I'm finding it hard, it was just this layer that had come down, and even they were more relaxed. So it was nice. It was nice to see that develop in everyone. And us just become really relaxed with one another.
So as well as going on your own expeditions, you also take other people on expeditions, is that right?
Yeah, just once or twice a year. And it's a really nice thing, because I'll take people who, as long as they want to do it, then that's like all you need. Everything else can be learned. You just have to have the enthusiasm to do it. And so I've had such a range of people come, and it's a really great thing, because you can, whether I do some that are 2 weeks and some that are 6 days out up in the Arctic, and you can just see this feeling that I remember I having for experiencing it, whether it's the first time or whatever it is, a moment of just realizing what you're capable of. And I really like that, and also realizing how agile and beautiful the world is as well. And so it's nice to be able to be a part of that. Yeah, it's very I always think, I think in modern world we forget that actually by giving, you get a lot from it by giving. Well, it's not, you shouldn't be take, and it happens on expedition. So when you're able to offer your snack to someone, it's like quite a big deal. But actually, you get so much, like when you're helping other people out, you get so much energy from it when you're out on an expedition. And the same goes like in modern day life. If you're actually helping out people, you get something.
A lot of fulfillment, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, and again, going back to why the benefits, why do I love it, and all that sort of thing. And one of the reasons is that fulfillment of whatever the whole expedition is, what they give you. So
on the forefront, people that sign up to that, so they might think that the physical side is the toughest bit, but what do you think of the mental side for the people that are new to that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they sort of, there's this constant fear of not wanting to hold people up. And that might not be a physical thing. That might be, like I said, with the I don't know where I put that, and I know it's going to take me 10 minutes to look, and all that sort of thing that people get worried about. And then they get worried. So yes, it's physical throughout the day and you're moving. You haven't finished what you've got to camp. Then the real thing starts. You have to then get everything sorted, and then it's another few hours before you're actually in your sleep bag. And that's an interesting one, because a lot of people sort of think, oh, we've done it, we can relax now. But no, you gotta. When you thought you had got to the bottom, like, you gotta keep digging, and literally as well. So,
Do you think that's the biggest realization that people will have then when they go on an expedition with you? The fact that the hardest bit isn't necessarily the trekking during the day, it's the setting up camp at night.
yeah, setting up camp at night and dealing with, when you're waking up and feeling sore, if you are feeling sore, you've no choice but to keep going. You can as well. So it's it's good, because I know everyone can, and it's just finding it in you. And it's good to unlock that in every one of us. Then you know you can use it in your day-to-day life, which is a real helpful thing to know.
Apply that same mindset to other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the age of 23, you were made a fellow of the Royal Geographic Society, and you're also the youngest member of the Council of the Scientific Exploration Society. What does that involve for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, with the SES, the Scientific Exploration Society, is constantly working with them for various events they're doing, and like spreading the message of what they do. And with the Royal Geographical Society, it's a mixture, really. Sometimes it's putting the flag out on expeditions, or doing talks out there, working with the different. So they have various weekends over the year to sort of get people involved and learning about the world and inspire more. So it all comes down to the sort of storytelling.
What's your view on how the coming decade will affect the amazing yet vulnerable places that you've been to, such as the Amazon and the Arctic, when they're in the hands of the humans?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a very interesting time, because it is a very crucial period in history, in the world's history. And I think we're going to continue seeing a lot of devastation in the Arctic, because we are getting to the point where it's going to be hard to slow that down significantly. But I think on the positive note, in the Amazon, for example, the president, who is now the new president, Lula of Brazil, he's shown that just that one change of leadership can make such a difference, which is great, because lots of countries may have, in my view, may have the wrong leadership, but that one right person, not necessarily, restart the clock, but it can slow things down. And they've sort of, the logging and deforestation has gone down so much since he's been in power, and he's handed loads more rights to the indigenous communities out there and things. So it shows you it's a bit more hope. So I think we're, with the younger generation in all parts of the world, we're all so much more aware of what's going on, and our voices is now being more heard, and we're getting more angry, and more action is being taken. And I think as we get older, I think the leaders that we have, like the bad ones, know their time is up. I think they're just that now everything they're doing, they're like, it's all out of scared and like greed, and like go quick before we know we're going to be booted out.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite positive. I think there's going to be a big shift. Yes, there will be some problems, and we're not acting quick enough. But I think I am hopeful, because we have the tools, we have the technology and the knowledge. We know what we have to do. We just have to input it. And in Brazil, they proved that actually, when you do the right thing, it matters, and it makes a huge difference.
I was going to ask, one of my questions was going to be, what can the newer generations do to divert the current direction of global warming and deforestation? But I think you've said it there in that answer. We just need to show that we care about it.
Yeah, and we can't stick our head in the sand. We've got to be hopeful, and we've got to vote. We've got to use our voices, and we've got to not take. We can't settle. We've got to, and I think we're not. I think we're all angry, and I think everyone's hopefully realizing that politics does matter, and we're the young generation have the power, because we're the ones that historically never voted, and if we vote, we can change everything. And we know. I think people know that young people. It's obvious. We all care so much about it. And it's like the main, what is it? Climate anxiety and things is a big problem. And so it needs to, like, it's the answer to everything. It's the answer to a good economy. It's the answer to education. It's the answer to jobs. It's the answer to healthcare, because we'll all be healthier and not breathing in pollution. Like, it's literally the answer to everything. So
it boils down to that.
Yeah. If you're not focusing on the environment, it's the economy needs to go that way in order to survive. I think some of the countries know that already, and we'll just be left behind if we don't do it.
What's the story behind Barack Obama following you on Twitter?
That's a story that I still haven't said to anyone. So that's I had it links back to some time I spent in Washington DC and New York. I've had this odd time, so that I haven't actually revealed yet.
Was it linked to expeditions and the environment, or was it separate?
No, it's actually separate. It was linked to TV stuff we did.
Okay.
And it will come out at some point.
Yeah. Okay. I've got one final question for you, Lucy. Who do you know that you'd recommend I spoke to next, and what would the reason for that be?
I think you should speak to someone called Eliza Brown, who is a girl who has set up a really awesome thing up in the Highlands called Revival. And she's being featured a lot in all the newspapers, and she's got this island basically, and it's like a castaway, and you can go there and you can just connect with what's important again. She's taking everyone from business people. I think she should take politicians, so they all like throw away their phone and come together, good conversation. But she's a survivalist. She's done multiple sails around the world, sort of thing, and she's got some awesome bushcraft skills. And she's got a great way of thinking that would be interesting.
Have you been up there to visit?
Not yet. It's on my list to go. Now I really need to go and see what she's done. I think she's got a really good thing going. It looks amazing from what I've seen.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Lucy, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your stories and views. It's really inspiring to hear you talk. If people want to follow you and your expeditions, where should they go?
They should go probably Instagram is probably the best. Lucy Sheps, LucySheps.
Perfect. I'll link that down in the description below, as well as your website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, Lucy.